So next talk is going to be done by Yan, and he is a professor at Northwestern. So his research is primarily focused on security and measurement for networking and large-scale distributed system. And he graduated in 2003. Thanks.
Thanks, Molly. Yeah, we are just a few days apart. We could be a twins. So yeah, I'm number 25 on Randy's list, and also echo what Anne said in the morning. Really appreciate Randy's guidance for my PhD career. So when I came to Berkeley in 1998, I originally came as a student in computer graphics. But during the first year, I kind of changed my interest significantly. I want to do something in networking and systems. So then I started to change the area, and of course I need to look for advisors. Unfortunately, I had quite a few frustration when I tried to look for advisors at that time. So I'm very grateful to Randy that I could join his group about almost at the end of my second year. And the first project that Randy had me work on is the network measurement. I still remember that day. I was so happy when I could join his group. And also, then just as Anne said, right, I never have to worry about funding anymore. I just don't have to do TA anymore. I just focus on my research. My first couple of publications happened all in Europe. And at that time, I was the one that spent the most travel grant in my group. And Randy even commented me on that. And also, even after I graduated, I joined Northwestern. I've been there for 12 years, and I've been consistently getting support from Randy, for my tenure promotion, for my promotion to full professors, and also the process. I'm sure I'm not the only one here who getting such support. I'm just again, I like to thank Randy for all this, probably lifetime support. All right, so back to research. I've been, my PhD thesis was on networking, but then I gradually work more and more on security. Starting with network security, and then the mobile security, then the web security, and more these years on the mobile security. So I want to talk a few things on the recent projects. So we did quite a few mobile security stuff, but I want to talk about something more recent and maybe more interesting. This is a project we did for the malicious mobile ad detection, and we just got news that getting to NDSS next year. Well, I'm sure everybody has phones, right? And smartphone. And can I ask how many people use Android phones? Pretty good. So it's definitely fits with the market survey that the majority of the users with Android phones. And how many people pay for the apps on your Android phones? Yes. Anybody? Well, you do have a few?
Repeat the question. What's the question?
Oh, I mean, how many people paid for the apps on, for your Android phones? I do have a few? Wow, you guys are very good friends of developers. But I guess most of people don't really pay, right? So how do the developers survive? Right? They're mostly by ads. But unfortunately, the ads sometimes can be abused. So I don't know whether this happened to you, like when you run an app, sometimes this will come up automatically. And it will claim that I have scanned your phones and find the threats. Right? So, if you click on the, the install threat protection, or or the bar as below that, it will show something like that, something really serious that you should, download and install the MB AV software. And furthermore, it could have the phishing page like that, which you are asked to, give the credit card information to subscribe to their AV service. Okay, so all these attacks often come from ad libraries, which the developers often have no clue when they got in. All right, so vast effort, a lot of efforts, if we talk about the security industry, anti-malware detection, a lot of effort have been spent on analyzing the malicious apps themselves. Right, for example, the Google bumper and all the app market try to detect, when they take the app, before they put on the market, they will try to detect whether it's a malware or not. However, they often overlook the ad library that come together with the ad, because the malicious advertisement at that time is not in the ad library yet. It's dynamically loaded when you really execute the app, and on a click on, or sometimes either with or without click, there are the merit is dynamically loaded. Okay, so that will lead users to the website hosting malicious apps, or sometimes download the malware directly. Okay, so these attacks are often hidden from these app markets. And we'll call this hidden attacks through so-called an app web interface. And we are the, at least from publication-wise, we are the first to analyze and find the app web attacks in the Android apps. And we develop a novel techniques to interact with UI widgets to really trigger the app web interface. Now, keep in mind, this only comes dynamically, right? There's no static analysis can really tell you what is really behind, what can happen when these ad libraries start executing. And then we can conduct a systematic study. We started millions of apps, both from China and in the U.S. market, and try to find the ad networks that really could contribute to such attacks. And we did study these apps and find quite a few such unknown attacks, such as the antivirus scam that I showed you, and there were also there are some more case studies I'm going to show you at the end. With this, there are iPad, iPhone scams, and also the Trojans that will send out the paid short message automatically, so that the cell phone users will actually get the money loss even without any consent. So in terms of outlines, I'm going to talk about the background on the mobile advertising a little bit, and then give the system design and the detection results. Finally, I will briefly give a few case studies. So the advertising actually industry is quite sophisticated. You can see the kind of long chain of such ecosystems. All right, so we are the users often, as the last mile, but there are app developers which will connect so-called ad networks, and these ad networks are further, upstream has advertisers, which they will so that get advertisement from these guys, and then through the ad library to display to the users. So the publishers often show the ads, to the users, like the app developer as I mentioned, and the advertiser actually is very important, components in, these are the people that really, have the money, give the money, right? So that's they give the money through the advertisement, through the ad networks, and give some of the portion to the developers. And one of very important, I think, the kind of really the glue in this ecosystem is the so-called ad networks. Okay, and there it's also called aggregators, right? Then the link the advertiser, where the whole ad industry is money from, to the publishers of those apps. Often they buy the ad space from the publishers these are the app developers, right? And then sell them to the advertisers. And there are quite a lot of study on how this, how to best make best use of those space and to do the targeted ads for users. So the ad networks certainly is nothing new. I mean, especially for the webs, right? As you all well know, that the web platform also has a large number of ad libraries or ad networks. But on the other hand, the so-called mobile in-app advertising are much less started. Okay, and for example, when we compare, later I'm going to show the ad library measurement results. So when we compare the mobile ad libraries and those ad libraries for the web platform, we can find there are a lot more, mobile ad libraries still nowadays still alive than those in their web ad platform. On the web ad, there are only a few major players left, so it's after the competition, there's only big players survive. But on the mobile side, the in-app advertising, I think, is still at the gold rush time. So there are a lot of players try to get in the markets. And to do that, these ad libraries often come with different quality. And when it takes their advertisement from the publishers, they do a very little screening on what the ad can be. Actually, also very hard for them to screen the ads come from the original publishers. And that's why ad libraries, when you already execute the apps, and the ad library can really bring the malicious ad to their users' phones. All right, so that's why even when you see the malicious links are visited through those landing pages, the app developers often know nothing about it, and often the app developers themselves are benign. Okay, so that's why I think it's a very serious problem, and I try to do some measurement detection to find more about it. So next, I'm going to talk about the system design. So of course, in the beginning, we'll just collect a very large number of app stats. We have about millions of them. And the challenge is really how to do the dynamic analysis automatically, right? So we're going to have to somehow trigger the app web interface to get the URLs, and often the URLs have to go through the whole bunch of redirection chains, and finally get their so we're going to scan all the list of URLs and see anything malicious. At the same time, we load these URLs into a mobile web emulator, and then to really execute them and really do their dynamic web page analysis. And sometimes it will really trigger their file downloads. And then I'm going to show later. I'm going to show the results that if that is to do so, then actually 50% of chance is going to have some malware. Okay, so we download those malicious files, and then download those files, then do the file scanning to see whether they are they are benign apps. Sometimes they're also benign apps because they try to promote, do some app promotion. But sometimes there's going to be some malware in there. Then we try to scan and detect both the URLs and also the files downloaded, and see whether there's any malware. All right. And in terms of there are three major components there. So the hardest one actually, how do we trigger? How do we trigger the web links? And then after we triggering, we did all through the whole way through the dynamic analysis, and try to find the URL chains and the file download, and then do the detection. And finally, after we detect some malware, we want to do the provenance. That is, understand the caller regions of this malware activities, right? Whether it's really come from the links of the developer, or it's actually from an ad library, and which ad library. All right, so that's the provenance side. So I guess I'm just going to briefly talk about the triggering part, because that's actually the most challenging. In short, we try to execute those apps as deeply as possible and try to get as big coverage as possible. Actually, it's quite challenging, right? So we actually leverage on some of our earlier work, something called the Apps Playground. So Apps Playground is a large-scale dynamic apps analysis framework that we developed a few years ago and have hundreds of downloads. And so we leverage on that. And furthermore, we add the Webview support to the Apps Playground, so that it can really analyze those Webview components to interact with the Webviews, and especially here apply some vision techniques to identify those buttons, links, and then automatically click it, and so that it can try to trigger as many events as possible in the apps. In terms of UI exploration, traditional people use fuzzing, but here we additionally add some intelligent input, so we are able to automatically infer the context in the GUI and then automatically fill the information like a zip code, phone number, login password, so that the app can continue execution with those all the logging. And we find that it can significantly improve the code coverage sometimes. Another part is on how do we trigger as many events possible, right? So again, if there's a user, if the real person operating, that's much easier. But keep in mind, we try to do this on millions of apps, right? So we try to find, given the GUI output, we try to vision techniques to find the bounding boxes, and then click on each of the bounding boxes. Certainly, there could be some false positive, but but it doesn't matter, right? Just there's no effect after clicking on it. But we want to cover as many all the possible clicks as possible. So these are mainly about the triggering. And in terms of detection, right now we mainly use the virus totals, but we also have our own anti-malware detection technique, especially for the native Android malware. And to the best of our knowledge, there's no other system that can detect the native the Android malware in native code yet. Provenance is like how to understand the colored regions of attacks. For this part, is like the challenge is how do we find those ad networks? Okay, because the ad networks are the packages inserted in the apps, but it's hard to tell whether it's an ad network, which ad network, or it is just a popular Apache or game library. Okay, so there are quite a few challenges to do that, and finally we're able to cluster and attribute the code level elements to identify the ad libraries, and we'll find that has a very good accuracy. In the interest of time, I'm probably going to skip this part. Yeah, so in a nutshell, because not everybody doing security, right? So just don't want to get into the technical details. Yeah, here basically in our research, we apply a lot of programming language analysis techniques, right? So we attribute the features from the apps, put them into modules, and cluster these modules, and to find the different ad libraries. I'd like to report a few results. Again, we started about millions of apps, half from the Google Play market and half from the Chinese app market. These are the most popular the Chinese app stores. From them, we find a total of over 200 ad networks. Again, this is the most reported ad networks so far. And then we try to detect this malicious advertisements in these ad networks or through these ad networks. So again, we do for both U.S. and Chinese market. We try to compare the level of maliciousness, and we run all these apps for almost over 2 months. And there are, like you can tell, like hundreds of thousands or millions of such app-to-web links that we analyze. Among them, we find about like thousands malicious URLs, and this analysis also lead to about 500 or about 1,000 file download, and about half of them are malicious, and the other half could be just benign apps that try to promote the app in store. And you can tell the mentioned things like you can tell the amount of malicious stuff, especially for the malware downloading in the Chinese market, is almost double to the number of Google Play. Then we try to attribute like which ad libraries have such attacks, right? Because for any defense, we have to somehow come back to the origin, and so we're able to stop it. Again, we put that into the Google Play market and the Chinese markets, and you can tell the biggest one in Google Play actually is from called a tab context. The example I shown in the very beginning of my presentation is that it's the biggest ad malware campaign we find is from the tab context. Okay. And others like Start App, Baidu, Wubu, these are the major ad libraries that have those lead to those malicious download. And of course, you can tell there are a lot more such potential malicious there are a lot of more ad libraries, in the Chinese apps that have these attacks. So next, I'm probably just give you some case studies, and so we can maybe have still some time for questions. Right? All right. This is the AV scam campaign I reported in the beginning. Right? This is again, it's the biggest campaign we found. It's both in the U.S. market and Chinese market. And one interesting thing is we found this campaign like 20 days before the site was flagged as malicious by the Googles or others. In other words, is some we are ahead of those other companies in finding it. So I guess for the rest, I just I can scan through quickly. iPad scan, this is this automatic sends the paid message to the charge SMS service. Porn phishing and so again, all this going to cause economic losses to the users. All right. So in conclusion, we explored the app web interface. We're kind of the first one to detect the malicious malware through the ad libraries. Okay, and when the users will, we are continuing our process in doing that because we try to build this as a service, 24/7 service, because the ad keeps changing, right? Even we find these attacks, but the next moment it can change it right away. So we are building a continuous monitoring service and try to expand our scale to analyze more apps, more ad libraries, and more importantly, throughout a longer period. And we are working with some authority to try to protect Android users. CN CERT is a Chinese CERT, so one of the responsibilities is to regulate the app markets. So we're working with them to help to, like for example, we report those malicious ads and from which ad library to them, and they can notify the ad libraries to hopefully stop them. Yeah, and hopefully we can do something in US as well. I'm happy to take questions.
Let's thank our speaker. Any questions?
I just had two questions. So, in the graph that you had for China, the second bar was actually Google?
Yeah. That's I noticed that that's an interesting observation that we found out as well. We thought Google would ban everything in China, but that's not the case. The Google ad library is still one of the biggest players in China.
And this is almost like a joke, but when you do detect one of these, do you pop up thing saying this ad, this app has a malicious ad embedded in it, or like what do you do when you detect it?
I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
No. So you just pointed out that the way that the apps get you to click on things is that they say we've detected so many threats.
This is one of the scams, yeah.
So when you detect a threat, what do? Do you pop up something which says...
All right, yeah, that's a good question. So whether this is a faked AV scam or is a real promotion of the real AV company. I mean, I don't know whether we have any like a mobile AV company people here. Like, how do they promote the business? Like, yeah. It's a good question. So basically, we have to the detection is done both by VirusTotal and also we have some manual verification to make sure they are indeed a virus. They are not from the real AV companies.
So my question is, just listening to your talk without knowing a lot about security, I'm blown away by the fact that you're able to analyze 1 million applications. That's, mind-boggling to me, actually. So I'm wondering, could you speak a little bit about what was involved in doing that? Obviously, they're in the libraries, but how much computing time in the app stores? But how much computing time? What was the infrastructure you used to run your analysis on that gigantic, population of applications?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we have several servers. Again, I have a team in China as well. We haven't used Spark yet. Hopefully, we can sometime use that. But I'm sure this involves a big data analysis. Right now, we just have quite a few servers running all this analysis, continuous analysis. Still, we're still trying to speed them up. Yeah.